The water hits Nathan Calloway in the face before he even opens his eyes. Cold, salt-heavy. Real, he gasps and rolls onto his side, coughing until his throat burns, until the sea empties out of his lungs and the morning air rushes in to replace it. His fingers dig into wet sand. His body aches in places he did not know could ache. For one long, dizzy second, he does not know where he is. He does not know what day it is. He does not know how long he has been lying on this shore. Then he hears it, a voice, low and careful, saying his name. Nathan. He lifts his head. 5 figures stand above him, forming a half circle at the edge of the tide. 5 young men, soaking wet, trembling in the early morning light, all staring down at him with expressions that sit somewhere between relief and absolute terror. Their clothes are torn. Their skin is scraped. Their eyes are wide with something Nathan cannot yet name. He knows all 5 of them. Tio Beaumont stands closest, arms wrapped tight around his own chest, dark eyes locked on Nathan with an intensity that does not waver. Behind him, Kes Whitfield clutches a broken piece of wood from the plane like a lifeline. Damie Osai sits in the sand a few feet back, both hands pressed flat against the ground like he needs something solid to hold onto. Ramai Cross is standing with his back half-turned, staring at the tree line, jaw tight. And Zion Merritt, the youngest of all of them, is crying. Quietly, the kind of crying that has been happening for a while. Nathan pushes himself upright. Everything spins. Is anyone hurt? He asks. His voice comes out rough, scraped raw. Nobody answers right away. That is when he knows it is bad. The last thing Nathan remembers clearly is the engine. The sound it made right before it stopped being an engine sound and became something else entirely. A grinding, tearing, dropping sound that reached into his chest and pulled every organ sideways. He remembers the oxygen masks. He remembers someone screaming. He remembers the ocean coming up to meet them faster than anything in his life had ever moved. He does not remember landing. He does not remember swimming. He does not remember how he got to this beach. He stands now on legs that barely cooperate and turns a slow circle, taking in the full picture of where they are. The beach is narrow. Behind it, a wall of jungle, green and thick and completely untouched, the kind of green that means no roads, no buildings, no people. The water in front of them is so blue it almost looks painted. Not a ship in sight, not a trail of smoke, not a sound except wind and birds and the rhythmic drag of waves pulling at the sand, no rescue boats. No radio towers, no way out. Nathan turns back to the 5 Omegas watching him. He is the only alpha here. He was the only alpha on the flight. He was traveling with this group for what was supposed to be a 5-day research retreat off the coast of the Pacific. He had barely spoken to any of them before the plane went down. He knew their names. He knew their files. He did not know them. He looks at Tio last. Tio is still staring at him, not panicking, not crying. Just watching Nathan with those dark, unreadable eyes. And there is something in that stillness that Nathan cannot fully explain, something that makes him feel like Tio already knows something he does not. We're going to be okay, Nathan says. The words land in the air between them and immediately feel smaller than he meant them to. Tio says nothing. Zion cries harder. And Nathan Calloway, alpha researcher, the man who has never once in his adult life not known what to do next, stands on a beach at the edge of nowhere, and for the first time in his life has absolutely no answer. Hi viewers, if you were stranded on a desert island with people you barely knew, what is the very first thing you would do to survive? Comment below, I want to know. The first hour is organized chaos. Nathan takes inventory of what washed ashore with them. 2 waterproof bags from the overhead compartments. 1 first aid kit, miraculously intact. A lighter that still works. Pieces of the plane scattered along the shoreline seat cushions, a tray table, a strip of insulation foam that Kaz immediately claims as a sleeping mat. Not much, just enough to prove the universe has a thin, cruel sense of humor. Ramai finds fresh water by following a small bird inland. He returns 20 minutes later looking surprised at himself, pointing back toward the tree line. Nathan goes with him to check, a stream small but clear cutting through the roots of ancient palms. Nathan tastes it, holds it on his tongue, nods. We set up camp near here, he says. Ramai looks at him sideways. We listen to you now. Nathan meets his gaze. You don't have to, but I know how to build a shelter and I know which plants won't kill you. So, Ramai looks away first. By nightfall they have a shelter. Rough, leaning slightly left, held together with woven palm leaves and the kind of prayer that only comes from desperation. But a shelter, a fire that stays lit. Water they can drink. Nathan sits apart from the group as the sun drops, watching the ocean. He is counting. He is running numbers in his head. Based on the flight path, they were over open water roughly 400 miles from the nearest populated island. Based on how little wreckage has washed up, the plane hit hard. Based on how no one has come yet, not a single boat, not a single aircraft passing overhead, he suspects that wherever they landed is somewhere that does not appear clearly on standard navigation maps. He suspects they will be here a long time. He does not say this out loud. He turns away from the ocean. He looks at the shelter. Through the woven leaves, he can see the glow of the fire. He can see Kaz's silhouette and Damie's and the others. 5 people who were strangers to him 48 hours ago, who are now the entire population of his world. And then he sees Tio. Tio is standing just outside the shelter entrance, looking at Nathan across the dark beach. not moving, not speaking, just looking. Nathan's chest tightens. He tells himself it is the cold. He turns back to the ocean, but he does not sleep that night. And somewhere in the dark, without knowing he is doing it, his hand lifts and presses flat against the center of his own chest, right over his heartbeat, as if something is trying to get out and he is trying to hold it in. He does not notice. Tio does. Tio watches Nathan's hand pressed to his own chest in the dark, and something moves through him. Something quiet and complicated and very old. He pulls his knees up to his chest and wraps his arms around his legs and stares at the fire until his eyes blur. He does not sleep either. And the island breathes around them, slow and patient and knowing, like something that has been waiting a very long time for all 6 of them to arrive. 3 weeks in, and Nathan Calloway's scent is everywhere. Tio notices it first. He notices it on a Tuesday, or what he is counting as Tuesday, because there is no longer a real Tuesday, only the days he scratches into the bark of the palm tree near the water stream. He notices it when he is standing downwind of Nathan during the morning fire-building ritual, and something in his body reacts before his brain catches up. His pulse jumps, his hands still. He steps back, he does not say anything. He turns around and walks in the opposite direction, down to the water's edge, where he stands with his feet in the tide and breathes through his nose, and tells himself very firmly that it means nothing. That it is biology. That the omega instincts running through his blood are just confused because they have been isolated and stressed and surrounded by a single alpha for 3 consecutive weeks with no outlet and no distance. It means nothing. But that evening, Kaz pulls him aside. "Tell me you felt it too," Kaz says, quiet, eyes darting back toward where Nathan is crouched by the fire. "Tell me I'm not losing my mind." Tio looks at Kaz for a long moment. He says nothing. Kaz exhales. "Yeah, that's what I thought. The scent issue is not discussed openly." All 5 of them feel it. Tio can see it in the way their bodies change when Nathan walks close, the way conversation slightly stutters, the way Zion will hold his breath and then release it slowly, like he is trying to keep something inside. It is a biological reality nobody asked for and nobody knows how to address with words, so they do not address it with words. They address it by keeping busy. By working, Nathan drives the schedule hard, which Tio privately thinks is intentional. Not cruel, practical. Nathan seems to understand on some animal level that the worst thing for all of them right now is stillness, so there is no stillness. There is food gathering, shelter reinforcing, water management, fire tending, medical checks using the first aid kit's limited contents. There is always something to do. It helps, mostly. On the day that marks 1 month on the island, Nathan and Tio end up alone for the first time. It is an accident. The others have gone inland to check the fruit trees they found in week 2. Nathan stayed back to reinforce the shelter roof after a night of heavy rain. Tio stayed back because Tio does not entirely trust the shelter to hold if only one person is working on it, and Nathan, for all of his competence, has never built anything with his hands before this island. That is Tio's read of him anyway. Correct, as it turns out, they work in silence for a while. Tio weaves palm fronds without being asked. Nathan watches his hands for a moment, then copies the motion and gets it right on the 3rd try. He is a fast learner. Tio has noticed that. Nathan absorbs things quietly from the outside, like a person who has spent his whole life watching the room before entering it. "Where are you from?" Nathan asks, not looking at him. Focused on the frond in his hands, Tio hesitates. "Atlanta," he says. Nathan nods. "You have family there, my grandmother. She know you're here, on the island." Tio looks at him. "She knows the plane went down, that's all anyone knows." Nathan is quiet for a moment. Something crosses his face, fast and then gone. "Right," he says. "Of course." They go back to working in silence. The wind moves through the palms above them. Somewhere further inland, a bird calls out twice and then stops. Then Nathan stumbles. He catches himself on the shelter frame, one hand gripping the wood, the other shooting out reflexively. His palm lands on Tio's shoulder. Steadying himself, taking the balance back, he does not move his hand right away. Tio freezes. The hand is warm, warmer than the air, warmer than it should be. Nathan's grip is steady, not tight, not demanding, just there, present. And Tio's omega instincts, which have been carefully managed and carefully boxed and carefully kept at a distance for 31 days, choose that exact moment to stop listening to his brain entirely. He feels something unlock in his chest. He hates it. Nathan pulls his hand back. "Sorry," he says, looks at his own palm like it confused him. "It's fine," Tio says. His voice is completely flat. Nathan looks at him. Tio does not look back. They finish the roof in silence. But that night, while the others sleep, Tio lies on his back and stares at the stars through the shelter gap and thinks about that hand on his shoulder for a great deal longer than he wants to. He thinks about warmth. He thinks about steadiness. He thinks about what it means that a single point of contact from a man he barely knows made every careful wall he has spent his whole life building want to fold. He presses his palm flat against his own sternum. He counts his own heartbeat until he falls asleep. He loses count somewhere past 40. And outside, Nathan sits by the dying fire alone, throwing small sticks into the embers one at a time, watching them catch and burn and disappear. He is thinking about the look on Tio's face, that fractional second before he locked it down. That fractional second when something real was there. He does not know what to do with what he saw. He throws another stick into the fire. He watches it burn. The rain comes in month 3 like a punishment, not a passing storm. A real, sustained, island-soaking downpour that lasts for 11 days straight and turns the beach to mud, and the stream to a rushing, angry current, and the shelter into a tight, damp space where 6 people who are still technically strangers are forced into a proximity that none of them are built to handle. On the 4th night of the rain, the fire goes out. It takes Nathan and Tio 2 hours in the dark to get it back. They work shoulder to shoulder under the leaning side of the shelter, Nathan feeding the lighter flame to shredded dry bark that Tio produces from a waterproof pouch he made 3 weeks ago, quietly, without telling anyone, because he is the kind of person who prepares for the thing nobody else has thought of yet. You made this already, Nathan says, looking at the pouch. Week 2, Tio says. Nathan stares at him. How did you know we'd need it? Didn't know, Tio says. Just thought it was possible. Nathan holds the bark to the flame. It catches. He feeds it carefully. The fire breathes back to life, small and orange and furious, and both of them lean close to it and soak in the warmth and do not speak for a few minutes. Just breathe, just exist in the orange light. Then Nathan says quietly, "You're the most prepared person I've ever met." Tio says nothing. "I mean that," Nathan says. Tio lifts his eyes, looks at Nathan directly, which he does not do often. Nathan is looking back at him with an expression Tio has not seen on his face before, open, unguarded. No strategy in it, just honest. Tio looks away first. "Others need to know we have dry bark," he says. "In case this happens again and we're not both here." Nathan nods, understands the redirect, accepts it. "I'll tell them in the morning." The rain keeps falling. On the 8th day, Damie gets sick. Not critically, a fever, body aches. The kind of illness that on the mainland would mean 2 days in bed with soup and streaming television and complete recovery. On the island, it means everything stops. Nathan takes over Damie's responsibilities without being asked. Tio boils water and makes a compress from the medicinal leaves Ramai identified in week 6. Kaz sits with Damie through the nights, keeping him cool, talking low and steady in that particular voice Kaz uses when he is trying to hold something together. Damie recovers in 4 days. On the morning he sits up and eats on his own. All 5 Omegas share a look across the shelter, something deep and collective, the kind of look that says we made it through that together. Nathan is outside checking the rain's damage to the food stores and does not see the look, but Tio sees it. And he feels it settle somewhere in his chest. These 4 people, strangers on a plane 3 months ago, are no longer strangers to him. He does not know exactly when that changed. He suspects it happened in increments too small to notice, the way the tide moves slowly, constantly, and then all at once it is somewhere completely different from where it started. On the 11th day, the rain stops. The sun comes back out like it is arriving late to something important. The beach steams. Everything drips. The whole island smells green and clean and freshly washed. Zion is the first one outside, face tilted up, laughing, actually laughing, and the sound of it bounces off the trees and comes back to them clean and bright. Nathan watches Zion laugh. Something happens to Nathan's face. It is quiet and fast and gone almost before Tio registers it. But Tio is watching. Tio is always watching, and he sees it. A flick of something across Nathan's expression that is not quite grief and not quite longing, but sits somewhere in between. Like a man who has remembered something beautiful that he did not know he missed. Tio touches his own stomach. He does not know he does it. He is not thinking about his body. He is not thinking about biology. He is not thinking about the scent that has been wrapping around all of them for months now, quiet and constant and patient. He is thinking about Nathan's face in the moment he heard Zion laugh. His hand rests below his navel, stays there. His eyes go still. Something shifts inside him, a sensation so quiet he almost misses it. Almost, but it is there. Low and deep and impossible to explain. Like a door he did not know existed has just swung open 1 centimeter. Like something is trying to tell him something his brain is not ready to receive. He pulls his hand away. He walks down to the water. He stands there for a long time, feet in the cold tide, staring at the horizon where the ocean and the sky meet and blur into each other. He breathes. He counts. He tells himself he is tired. He tells himself 3 months of island survival will make anyone feel strange things. He almost believes it. Behind him, Kaz has gone still too. He is watching Tio from the shelter entrance. His eyes drop briefly to where Tio's hand just was below his own navel, pressed flat, and then he looks away. His face does not change, but he reaches into his shirt pocket and wraps his fingers around nothing, just holding his own closed fist like he needs something to grip. Ramai beside him looks over. "Okay," Ramai asks, Kaz does not answer. The island hums around them, low and warm, like something content. And that evening, while Nathan hums a song softly to himself while tending the fire, a melody none of them recognize, that he does not seem to know he is making, all 5 Omegas go quiet at exactly the same moment. Listening. Still, Nathan does not notice. He keeps humming. The fire pops. The stars come out one by one, and in the morning, Tio wakes before anyone else and sits very still in the half-dark. and presses both hands against his stomach, slowly, carefully, like someone approaching something fragile, and counts the days since the last time his body felt like itself. The number he reaches makes him stop breathing for 5 full seconds. He looks up. He looks at Nathan, asleep across the shelter, one arm thrown over his face, chest rising and falling in the blue pre-dawn light. Tio looks back down at his own hands. His mouth opens, no sound comes out. Tio does not tell Nathan, he does not tell anyone, not that first morning, not the second, not the third. He carries the knowledge the way you carry a stone you found at the bottom of a river in 2 hands, carefully, always aware of its weight, never setting it down because you are afraid that the moment you do, you will not be able to pick it back up. He tells Kaz on day 5, he does not plan to. It happens the way confessions happen, when the body gets so tired of keeping something in that it simply overrides the brain. They are at the stream, collecting water just before sunset, crouched side by side, and Tio says the words so quietly that for a second he is not sure he has said them out loud at all. Pregnant. Water rushes past. Kaz does not move, does not look up. His hands stay exactly where they are, fingers curled in the current. 3 full seconds pass. He says just as quietly, "Me too." Air between them changes. Tio looks at him. Kaz looks back, and in that single exchange everything shifts, because it is not just 2 of them. Tio knows it before Kaz says the next part. He knows it the way you know a thing your body figured out before your mind caught up, with a deep, settling certainty that feels more like recognition than discovery. Ramai told me 3 days ago, Kaz says. He made me swear not to say anything. Damie. Tio asks. Kaz is quiet for a moment. Damie figured it out before any of us. He's known for 2 weeks. He's been terrified. Zion. Kaz closes his eyes. Zion doesn't know yet. He suspects something is wrong with his body, but he's too scared to say it out loud. Tio sits back on his heels. He stares at the moving water. He watches the stream carry a single leaf downstream, spinning slowly, and does not look away from it until it disappears around the bend. 5 of them. All 5, Nathan has no idea. The silence that follows is thick and full of things neither of them says, because neither of them needs to. They are both thinking the same thing and both already know the answer, and it is heavy enough without words on top of it. We can't tell him, Tio says. Kaz looks at him sharply. Why not? Because look at him, Tio says. His voice is steady, careful, absolutely controlled. He's keeping us alive. His focus is on food and water and shelter and keeping everyone functional. The moment he finds out, all of that shifts. He starts managing something he can't control, something he wasn't ready for, something he doesn't have a framework for. And when an alpha loses his framework, he panics, Kaz says. He panics, Tio confirms. And we cannot afford panic, not here, not now. Is quiet for a long time. So we say nothing, he says. We say nothing, Tio says. Not yet. Nods once, slow, not happy about it, but nodding. They carry the water back to camp. They say nothing. The next 3 weeks are the most difficult of Tio's life, and Tio's life has not been easy. He begins to show early, just barely, a softness below his ribs that he conceals under the loose fabric of the shirt he has been wearing since the crash, which is fortunately 2 sizes too big. He learns quickly which positions make it less visible, which angles to avoid, how to sit and stand and move so that the change in his body does not announce itself before he is ready to let it. He watches Kaz do the same. Watches Ramai grow quieter than usual, more internal, more still. Watches Damie lose the shaking nervousness he carried in his first month on the island, and replace it with something older and more grounded. A gravity that looks like maturity and is partly that, and partly something else entirely. Watches Zion, sweet, young, sunshine-laugh Zion, find out on a Thursday, sitting alone by the water, and spend the next hour with his face in his hands before wiping his eyes and standing up and coming back to camp and smiling like nothing happened. Tio has never respected any of them more than he does in that moment. Nathan, meanwhile, knows something is happening, he does not know what. But his alpha instincts are built for exactly this kind of reading, shifts in group energy, changes in body language, the particular quality of silence that means something is being held back. He watches them. Tio can feel him watching. Especially at night when the fire dies low and Nathan sits at its edge, and his eyes move from face to face with that steady, measuring quality that means he is not at rest. One evening he says very carefully, "Is everyone sleeping all right?" General reassurances. "Yes, fine, just tired." Nathan looks at Tio. Tio meets his gaze. Holds it for exactly the amount of time that means nothing. Nathan's jaw tightens, he looks away, but 2 days later he begins cooking more. Nobody asks him to. He simply starts producing food in larger quantities, more frequently, more deliberately, fruits that are high in natural sugars, fish prepared more carefully, portions that are quietly bigger than they were last week. He does not comment on it, he just does it, like his body is responding to a need he cannot name with an action he can execute. Tio watches him ladle extra food onto Zion's plate. Something moves through him. Deep, warm, complicated. He looks down at his plate. He eats on the night it becomes undeniable. The night Kaz's shirt will no longer cooperate with the concealment effort, and Damie sits down too quickly and makes a small involuntary sound of discomfort, and Nathan's head snaps up from across the fire with the sharpest, most focused look Tio has ever seen on a human face. Tio makes a decision. Not tonight, not yet, but soon. He has to tell him soon. He looks at Nathan across the fire. Nathan is still looking at Damie, brow furrowed, something working fast behind his eyes. He has not put the pieces together yet, but he is close. Tio can see it happening in real time, the puzzle assembling itself in Nathan's mind whether Nathan wants it to or not. Tio presses his hand against his stomach under the cover of his folded arms. The baby moves, the first time just barely, a flutter, like something saying hello from a place Tio has never reached before. He stops breathing. Nathan turns and looks at him. Tio exhales, keeps his face still, raises his eyes, looks back at Nathan with every ounce of calm he has, which is a significant amount. It is perhaps the one resource he has always had in abundance, and Nathan stares at him for 3 long seconds with those golden brown eyes that see entirely too much. Okay, Nathan asks, low, direct. I'm fine, Tio says. Nathan looks at him for 1 more second, then he looks back at the fire. And Tio sits with a hand pressed against the first movement of new life, and wonders how much longer any of them can keep a secret that is already starting to breathe. The children arrive in the way that impossible things always arrive, too fast and too slow at the same time. Kaz goes first. In the early hours before dawn, 6 months after the crash, on a morning so still the entire island seems to be holding its breath, the sound he makes is not loud. It is sharp and short and cuts through the silence like a blade, and every single person in the shelter is awake before the echo fades. Nathan is on his feet before his eyes are fully open. He sees Kaz. He sees the position Kaz is in. He sees the way the others move, not panicking, not confused, but organized. Moving to Kaz with a practiced readiness that only comes from having prepared for exactly this, having talked about this, having planned for this in quiet voices when Nathan was not nearby. Nathan goes very still. The realization lands on him with the weight of an ocean. He looks at Tio. Tio looks back at him. Steady, direct, everything in his eyes that he has been keeping out of his eyes for 6 months, all of it sitting there now, fully present, because there is nowhere left to hide it. Nathan, Tio says, quiet, firm, we need you, focus. Nathan's chest heaves once, then he moves. He does not ask questions. He does not demand explanations. He drops to his knees beside Kaz and does what he has always done best, which is assess what is needed and provide it. He has no training in this. He has no preparation. He has the first aid kit, and the knowledge he absorbed watching Tio work for 6 months, and the particular competence that comes from a man who, when given no other option, becomes whatever the moment requires. Kaz's son comes into the world at 4:43 in the morning by Tio's count. He is small and loud and absolutely furious about being born, which strikes Nathan as the most reasonable reaction anyone has ever had to any situation. He holds the child while Tio works. His hands are shaking. He does not realize they are shaking until he looks down and sees them. These hands that have built shelters and started fires and pulled all 6 of them through 7 months of survival, trembling slightly around something so small and so impossibly real. He looks at the child's face. The baby's eyes are closed, fists clenched, mouth open, crying. Nathan looks at the baby's face. Something cracks open in the center of his chest. He does not move. He barely breathes. He just holds the child and stares and lets that crack widen into something he does not have a word for, something enormous and quiet and permanent. Give him here, Kaz says, exhausted. Reaching, Nathan passes the baby over carefully. He sits back on his heels. He puts both hands flat on his thighs. He looks at Kaz holding his child, and he looks at Tio, who has finally stopped moving and is watching Nathan from across the small firelit space with an expression Nathan can now fully read for the first time. Guilt, relief, fear, and underneath all of it, hope. A desperate, fragile, terrifying hope. Long, Nathan asks. His voice is not angry. It is not accusing. It is the voice of a man who is counting backwards in his head and arriving at numbers he does not know what to do with. Tio swallows. 6 months. Nathan closes his eyes. When he opens them, Damie is looking at him. Then Ramai. Then Zion, who at this moment Tio realizes is significantly further along than any of them initially guessed, because Zion has spent 6 months being more careful than anyone, wearing every layer available, staying positioned in ways that kept him out of direct firelight. Nathan follows Tio's gaze to Zion. He counts. He looks at Ramai. He looks at Damie. He looks back at Tio. His lips part. Of you, he says. It is not a question. The silence that follows is the loudest thing Tio has ever heard. He does not look away from Nathan. He keeps his chin level. He has made peace with this moment over the past 6 months, not fully, not completely, but enough to stand in it without collapsing. He has rehearsed what he would say. He has organized the words carefully, the way he organizes everything, sequentially, logically, each piece placed precisely. But when he opens his mouth, none of the organized words come out. What comes out instead is the truth, which is simpler. We didn't know how to tell you, he says. Nathan looks at him. And I was afraid, Tio says. Lower, the word costs him something. Of what you would do. Nathan is very quiet for a very long time. Outside, the island is beginning to lighten. The first grey edge of dawn pushes in from the east and touches the tree line and slowly starts to fill the world back in. Birds begin their morning noise. The stream sounds louder in the stillness. Kaz's son has stopped crying and is sleeping in his father's arms with the absolute confidence of someone who has never known a world without safety. Nathan stands up, he walks outside. Tio watches him go, he does not follow. He stays with the others, and they stay with each other, and nobody speaks. They listen to Nathan's footsteps in the sand, moving toward the water, growing quieter and then stopping. Zion reaches for Tio's hand. Tio lets him take it. Ramai sits very still, one hand pressed flat against himself, against the proof of everything they have been carrying. Damie stares at the fire. Kaz rocks his child and does not look up. In the following 4 weeks, the other 4 children are born. Nathan delivers every single one of them. He does not talk about it. He does not process it out loud. He simply shows up, every time, for every labor, and is present in the most fundamental way a person can be present. He boils water. He helps position. He holds hands when hands are needed. He steps back when space is needed. He receives each child into the world with hands that no longer shake. By the time Zion's daughter arrives, the smallest, arriving 3 weeks after Kaz's son, slipping into Nathan's hands in the quiet of a Tuesday afternoon with almost no drama, as if she has simply decided she is ready, Nathan has held 5 newborns. 5, one after another. He holds Zion's daughter and looks at her face. Her eyes are closed. Her fists are clenched. Her mouth is working silently, searching. She has Nathan's nose, not similar to Nathan's nose, not reminiscent of Nathan's nose. His nose, exactly, precise, unmistakable. Nathan stares at her face for a long, long moment. He counts 1 child, 2 children, 3, 4, 5. His hands grip the tiny weight of her, his daughter, his child, one of 5 children whose existence he did not know about, whose entire beginning happened in the orbit of his life without him ever turning to see it. He looks up, he looks at Tio. Tio is watching him. One hand pressed against the shelter frame. Eyes steady but wide, the widest Nathan has seen them since the night of the crash. Nathan's mouth opens. He looks back down at the baby in his hands. He looks up at Tio. Why, he says, and his voice breaks in a way it has not broken once in the 7 months they have been on this island. Not when the plane went down, not when the rain came, not when Damie was sick, not once. Why do they all have my eyes? Tio does not answer. He does not have to. Nathan already knows. And the knowing is not a door opening. It is not a curtain lifting. It is the entire wall of a room falling down at once. Nothing gradual about it, nothing managed or controlled. Just the sudden complete absence of the thing that was between them. The truth standing in the space where the wall used to be, quiet and enormous and breathing. Nathan holds his daughter. His hands do not shake, but his eyes, those golden brown eyes that have always seen too much, fill. And on the other side of the shelter, Tio presses both hands against his own sternum, right over his heart, and watches Nathan hold the child they made on a desert island neither of them chose, and feels something that is not quite relief and not quite grief, but contains elements of both, something new, something without a name yet, something that feels, for the first time in 7 months, like the beginning of a conversation instead of the end of a secret. Outside, the ocean moves, the island breathes. And 5 small children sleep in the world they were born into, a world made of palm leaves and firelight and salt air, and the particular, extraordinary kind of love that only grows in isolated places, quietly, without anyone giving it permission. Nathan walks back from the ocean at sunrise, and nobody says a word. He steps into the shelter with sand on his feet and salt on his face and something completely new in his eyes, something none of them have seen there before, not in 7 months of survival, not in storms, not in sickness, not in any of the 100 small crises this island has handed them. His jaw is set, his shoulders are back, but his hands, those hands that have held 5 newborns in the past 4 weeks, hang loose at his sides. Open, not fisted, not braced, open. He looks at Tio first. He always looks at Tio first, and Tio has never pointed this out, and Nathan has never acknowledged it, and right now neither of those things matter, because what is happening between them in this moment does not need to be named to be completely understood. Sit down, Nathan says, to all of them, quiet, not a command, and ask. They sit. The 5 children are sleeping. Kaz's son in the crook of Kaz's arm. Ramai's daughter in a woven cradle Damie built during his last 2 weeks of pregnancy, using techniques he learned from watching Tio weave the shelter roof. Damie's son against Damie's chest, rising and falling with his father's breathing. Zion's daughter in Zion's lap, one tiny fist wrapped around Zion's finger so tightly that Zion stopped trying to move hours ago and just accepted that he belongs to her now. And Tio's son, the oldest by 11 days, the one who arrived with his eyes already trying to open, impatient, alert, ready, asleep in the center of the shelter space that they have quietly reorganized over the past month to put the children at the middle of everything. Nathan looks at each child. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He takes a breath. Not angry, he says. Kaz makes a sound that is not quite a laugh and not quite a cry. Ramai looks at his daughter's face. Damie closes his eyes. Zion lets out a breath that sounds like it has been trapped in his lungs for 6 months. Tio does not move. I need to understand, Nathan says. Not as accusation, I need to actually understand, so I'm asking. He looks at Tio. Tell me. Tio is quiet for a moment. He looks down at his son. Looks at the child's sleeping face, that face that has Nathan's brow line and Tio's mouth, and something in between that belongs to neither of them and both of them entirely. He looks at that face for 3 full seconds before he lifts his eyes. We didn't plan it, Tio says. None of us planned any of it. The biology of what happened, the isolation, the scent, the proximity, it all compounded in ways that none of us could have managed or prevented. We were stranded, we were stressed. Our bodies responded to the only alpha present the way omega bodies have always responded under those conditions. It was not a choice, it was not a deception, it simply happened. Nathan listens, he does not interrupt, and then it kept happening, Tio says. And by the time any of us understood what it meant, it was already real, already growing, already here. He pauses. And I made the call not to tell you, that was me, not them, me. Because I was afraid that knowing would break your focus, and your focus was the thing keeping us alive. You were protecting everyone, Nathan says. I was managing a situation, Tio says. Whether that was right or wrong, I can answer for that later, but that was the reason. Nathan nods once, he is quiet for a long time. Outside, the morning builds. The light coming through the shelter gaps shifts from grey to gold. The children sleep on in that impervious, total way that newborns sleep, like the world is purely safe and purely warm and will always be both. I want to know their names, Nathan says. Something shifts in the shelter. Collective, quiet. Kaz speaks first. Amos, he says. His name is Amos. Nathan repeats it, low, careful, like he is placing it somewhere inside himself where it will stay. Amos. Lyric, Ramai says. Lyric, Nathan says. Solomon, Damie says. Solomon. June, Zion says, and his voice breaks on the single syllable, and he does not apologize for it, and nobody expects him to. June, Nathan says, and something in his voice breaks in exactly the same place. Then he looks at Tio. Tio holds his son a little closer. Chaos, he says. Nathan goes completely still. His eyes drop to the child, to Chaos. To the firstborn, the one who came into the world with his eyes fighting to open, who has spent 11 days looking at everything around him with an expression of profound interest that Tio privately recognizes as the exact expression Nathan wears every single morning when he is assessing the day. Chaos, Nathan repeats. His voice does not break this time. It does something quieter than breaking. It steadies, the way a thing steadies when it finds the ground it was always supposed to rest on. He stands up, he crosses the shelter. He crouches down in front of Tio. They are close now, closer than they have been since the night of the shelter roof in the rain, closer than the night of the fire, closer than the morning of the crash. Tio can see every detail of Nathan's face in the gold morning light, the scar above his eyebrow from the plane, the way his eyes are not quite brown and not quite gold but somewhere in between, like the island itself at the point where the sand meets the water. The exhaustion in the lines around his mouth, the something else new and unguarded and enormous sitting in the center of all of it. Can I hold him? Nathan asks. Tio does not speak. He lifts Chaos and places him in Nathan's arms. Nathan holds his son for the first time. His face does something that Tio has no vocabulary for. It is not a smile. It is not tears, though his eyes go bright and wet at the edges. It is more fundamental than either of those things. It is the expression of a man who did not know he was missing something until this moment, when the missing thing arrived in his arms and settled there and made every year of not knowing make a particular heartbreaking kind of sense. Chaos opens his eyes. He looks directly at Nathan. Nathan stops breathing. Hey, he whispers. To this 11-day-old boy who cannot understand language but who is looking at his father's face with those wide, alert eyes like he has been waiting for exactly this. Hey, Chaos. He stops, swallows. I'm your father. Tio looks away. He stares at the shelter wall. He counts the woven fronds, something to do with his eyes, something to focus on that is not Nathan's face saying I'm your father for the first time. He gets to 12 fronds and loses count and starts over. Gets to 7 and stops. He does not cry. He has not cried once in 7 months on this island. He does not cry now. But his hands, folded in his lap, empty for the first time since Chaos arrived, press hard against each other, knuckle against knuckle, like they are trying to hold something together through pure pressure. Nathan looks up from his son. He looks at those pressed hands. He looks at Tio's face. And then, without saying anything, without making it into a moment, without announcing it as anything other than what it is, he shifts Chaos to one arm, reaches out with his free hand and places it over Tio's. Warm. Steady, real. Tio's hands stop pressing. They go still. Neither of them speaks. And in the shelter behind them, 4 omegas and 4 sleeping children breathe in and out together in the gold morning light, and the island hums its long, patient hum. And for the first time in 7 months, the thing nobody has been saying out loud does not feel like a secret. It feels like a beginning. But then Nathan pulls his hand back. He stands up. He carries Chaos to the shelter entrance and stands there, looking out at the ocean with his son in his arms, and the line of his shoulders is not the same line Tio has been reading for 7 months. Something in it has changed, tightened, a thought working its way through him that has not arrived yet, that is still forming, that Tio cannot read from behind. Nathan turns slightly. When we get home, he says, quiet, looking at the water. What happens to them? The shelter goes completely silent. Tio looks at the back of Nathan's head. The question lands in the center of the room and sits there, enormous and unanswered. because none of them, not once, not in 7 months, has said those words out loud. When we get home. The night Ramai finds the signal firewood is the same night Nathan stops sleeping. Ramai does not announce it like a discovery. He comes back from his solo wood-gathering run on the eastern edge of the island, something he has been doing alone for 3 months, the private ritual of a man who needs an hour a day with no one else's breathing in his ears, and he drops a specific bundle of dry, resinous wood by the fire without making eye contact with anyone. But his jaw is tight. His hands are moving fast, the way they move when his brain is moving faster than his body wants to keep up with. Tio clocks it immediately. "What did you find?" Tio asks. Ramai looks at the bundle. "That wood burns fast and high and the smoke goes black," he says. "I tested it, small piece off behind the trees where no one could see. Sits up straighter." "How high?" Damie asks. "High enough," Ramai says. "If there's any aircraft within visual range, they'd see it." Shelter gets very quiet. Nathan is at the water's edge. He has been at the water's edge for most of the day, which is the new pattern, the one that started after the morning in the shelter when he held Caius and asked his question and did not get an answer. He works the same as always. He provides the same. But there is a part of him now that is somewhere else, turning something over and over, and all 5 of them can see it without being able to reach it. Tio looks at the bundle of wood. He looks at the children. Amos is asleep. Lyric is awake, watching the fire with the specific intensity of a child who has decided that fire is personally fascinating. Solomon is eating, Damie feeding him with the patient, unhurried focus of a man who has discovered that fatherhood is the one thing in his life that requires absolutely nothing from him except presence, and he is grateful for this. June is making a sound that is not quite a word and not quite not a word, and Zion is responding to each sound like it is a full sentence, which it may well be. Caius is watching the shelter entrance. He watches the entrance a lot. Tio has not decided yet what he thinks about that. "We burn it," Tio says. Ramai nods. "Tonight?" Kaz asks. "Tonight," Tio says. After the children are settled, they look at each other. There is a conversation happening in that shared look that is not made of words. It is made of 7 months. Of the crash and the rain and the fever and the births, and all the small daily acts of keeping each other functional and present and alive. It is made of the particular knowledge that only people who have survived something together possess, the knowledge that they are not who they were when they arrived here, and that who they are now was built jointly, piece by piece. In the specific way that only happens when people are given no alternative to each other. Whatever comes next, whatever home looks like, they know this, they built something here, something real, and it belongs to all of them. Nathan comes back from the water as the sun drops. He sees the bundle. He looks at Ramai. Ramai meets his eyes. "Signal fire," Nathan says, not a question. "Signal fire," Ramai confirms. Nathan crouches down and examines the wood, turns a piece over in his hands, smells it. Holds it to the last angle of daylight and looks at its density, its moisture content, the way the resin sits in the grain. He nods slowly. "Burn black," he says. "It'll carry, that's the point," Ramai says. Nathan sets the piece down. He stays crouched, hands on his knees, looking at the bundle. Something moves through his expression, fast and complicated, and then gone. "We've been here 7 months, he says. 7 months and 4 days, Tio says. Nathan looks up at him. "You counted every day," Tio says. Nathan holds his gaze for a moment, then he looks back at the wood. "We build it on the highest point of the beach," he says. "After dark so the flame shows against the sky. We keep a rotation going, someone awake and feeding it all night, every night until something responds." He stands up, he looks at all 5 of them, at the children in their arms and against their chests and asleep in the woven cradle. At the people they have become in this place, at this family that assembled itself without anyone drawing up a plan for it. "We're going home," he says. He says it like he means it. He says it like a man who has spent the last 3 days thinking hard about what that means and has arrived at something on the other side of all that thinking, not certainty, but direction. Not an answer, but a decision. The signal fire burns that night. It burns all night. Nathan takes the first rotation, 2 hours, feeding the high dark smoke into the black sky with steady hands. Kaz takes the second, Damie the third. By the time the sun comes up, the beach around them smells like wood smoke and salt and something electric, the way the air smells before weather. On the 3rd day of the signal fire, Nathan tells Tio the story of his family. It happens in the late afternoon, during the hour when the Barbies are all asleep at once. A synchronized miracle that lasts roughly 40 minutes and is treated by all 5 fathers with the reverence of a religious event. They speak quietly. They move slowly. They do not jinx it. Nathan sits beside Tio at the edge of the jungle line, back against a palm, looking out at the beach. He starts talking in the way that people talk when they have been quiet so long that the words have simply backed up past the point of containment. He grew up in Baltimore. Mother who worked 2 jobs. Father who meant well and was around until he wasn't, which Tio will understand is a specific kind of absence that teaches you early how to manage without things you were supposed to have. He went to school on a scholarship he treated like a responsibility because that is what it was. He built a career studying crisis biology, how organisms adapt under pressure, what survival actually costs at the cellular level, because he was always more comfortable studying resilience than discussing his own. He never had a serious relationship. Not because he didn't want one, because he kept choosing work over presence, and eventually people stopped waiting for you to choose differently. I was alone when I got on that plane, Nathan says. Not just no partner, just alone. Tio is quiet for a moment. So were all of us, he says. Nathan looks at him sideways. Tio meets his gaze. You weren't the only one on that flight who had spent a long time being good at being by themselves. Nathan studies his face. How long? Long enough, Tio says, that I stopped noticing it was a choice. Sun moves, the light changes. The 40 minutes of sleeping children stretch quietly around them like a gift. I have been thinking, Nathan says, about what I said. The morning after Caius was born, about what happens when we get home. I know, Tio says. I want to say it properly this time, Nathan says. Not as a question I'm dropping and walking away from, as a statement. Tio waits. Nathan looks at the ocean. Whatever home looks like, whatever city, whatever arrangement, whatever life we build out of all of this, I am in it. All the way, not visiting, not providing from a distance. In it, he pauses. I need you to know that, all of you. But specifically you. Tio does not move for a long moment. Why specifically me? He asks, careful. Even Nathan turns and looks at him with those gold-brown eyes that see everything. Because you are the one who held this together, he says. For 7 months, you made every decision that kept us functional. You organized the concealment to protect the others. You were the last one to sleep every night and the first one up every morning. You built the bark pouch in week 2 because you thought it might be possible that we'd need it. He pauses. And because Caius has your face and my eyes, and every time I look at him I see both of those things and neither of them is a problem for me. I need you to know that too. Tio looks down, he looks at his hands. He does not speak for a very long time. When he does, his voice is low and careful and costs him something. You don't know who I am outside of this island, he says. You know who I am here. That is a specific person in a specific context. The person I am in Atlanta, in a normal life with normal pressures, you don't know him yet. Then I'll learn him, Nathan says simply. Tio looks up. Nathan is not performing. He is not making a speech. He is just sitting with his back against a palm tree in the late afternoon light, saying a true thing in the plainest words available. From the shelter, Caius makes a sound. Tio is on his feet before he finishes the thought. He crosses to the shelter. He reaches down. He lifts his son and holds him against his chest and sways once, automatically, the way he has been doing for 11 days and the body already knows. Caius settles immediately, goes quiet, tucks his face against Tio's neck. Tio stands there holding his child and looks at Nathan, who has followed him and is standing in the shelter entrance with one hand on the frame, watching both of them with that same expression, the one from the morning with the names, the one that does not have a word yet, the one that is new and enormous and permanent. Tio swallows. Learn him slowly, he says. Nathan almost smiles. Understood. And that night the signal fire burns high and black into a clear sky, and all 5 of them take their rotation, and none of them speak about what comes next. They just tend the fire and hold their children and exist in the particular piece of people who have said the important things and are now waiting to see what the world does with them. The sky lightens before dawn, and on the horizon, very far out, a light. Tio is on rotation. He is the one who sees it first. He stares at it for 20 seconds, checking himself, refusing to react until he is certain. Then he turns around and goes to Nathan and places one hand on his shoulder. Nathan is awake in an instant. Tio points. Nathan looks. The light on the horizon is not a star. It is moving, slowly, steadily, the particular unmistakable movement of something that is being navigated. A boat. Nathan looks at Tio. Tio looks back at him. Feed the fire, Nathan says. Tio is already moving. The rescue boat does not arrive until morning, and the night between the light on the horizon and the hull breaking through the nearshore reef is the longest night of 7 months. They keep the fire high. They take no rotations, all 5 of them are awake. The children pass between arms in a steady shuffle, nobody willing to be the one who blinked when the light changed course or turned back or disappeared into the dark. Nathan stands at the water's edge for hours. Tio stands beside him. They do not touch. They do not speak much, but they are shoulder to shoulder in the firelight, and neither of them moves away. The others gather behind them as the sky begins to change. Kaz holds Amos so tight the baby squirms. Ramai keeps his eyes on the horizon with the specific intensity of a man who does not trust good things until they are physically in front of him. Damie is the one who spots the hull detail, the boat becoming a boat, not just a light. There, he says. Look, that's a vessel. Zion makes a sound. And then the boat is close enough to see the Coast Guard markings on its side, and the people on the deck, and the 2 smaller inflatable dinghies being lowered into the water, and then none of them are particularly dignified about any of it. Kaz is crying outright. Ramai sits down in the sand like his legs stopped cooperating. Damie is saying something in a low, fast voice that might be a prayer. Zion is laughing and crying at the same time in a way that sounds like music. Tio stands very still. He looks at the approaching rescue with Caius against his chest, one hand cupped around the back of his son's head. and feels the specific, complicated emotion of a man who wanted something so badly for so long that when it finally arrives, the first thing he feels is not pure joy but an enormous and frightening openness, like all the walls he built to survive the waiting have come down at once, and the inside of him is just open air. Nathan steps close behind him, not touching, just close. You ready? Nathan says quietly. Tio looks at the boat, he looks at Caius, he looks at the 4 other men behind him. These 4 people who came onto this island as strangers and are leaving it as something that has no adequate name in ordinary life but is the most real thing Tio has ever been part of. No, Tio says honestly. Nathan is quiet for a moment. Me either, he says. Coast Guard personnel hit the beach with efficiency and professionalism that is beautiful to witness after 7 months of improvising everything. Blankets, water bottles sealed, clean, cold in a way that makes Zion hold his bottle against his cheek before opening it. A medic who is visibly working to keep her expression neutral when she does the initial count. 1 alpha, 5 omegas, 5 newborn infants, on an uncharted beach 800 miles from the nearest registered flight path. She does her job, she does it well, but Tio sees the moment she looks at the children and looks at Nathan and does the math. He sees her recalibrate, he sees the things she does not say, he does not look away from her. They are all healthy, he says, directly, clearly. All 5 children are healthy, all 5 of us are functional. We need pediatric assessment and postpartum evaluation and hydration. In that priority order. She nods, adjusts, moves forward. Tio turns back to the water. The second dinghy is carrying more crew, and a communications officer with a satellite phone, who hands it to Nathan with an expression that says he understands what 7 months of no contact means to a person. Nathan takes the phone. He looks at it for a full 5 seconds. He dials. Tio does not hear the conversation. He is walking into the water to meet the medics. He is handing Caius to a Coast Guard officer with clear instructions about head support, and watching the officer receive his son with careful professional hands, and then standing in ankle-deep ocean water, feeling the bizarre and total weightlessness of not being responsible for everything for the first time in 7 months. Behind him, Nathan is talking into the phone, and then he is not talking. And then his voice breaks in a way that carries even over the ocean wind, just once, just for a moment, and Tio knows without turning around that whoever Nathan called has answered. That someone on the other end of 7 months of silence has picked up the phone and said hello, and Nathan is hearing a familiar voice for the first time since the plane went down. Tio walks out of the water. He goes to where his son is being assessed by the medic. He watches Caius look around at everything, the boat, the strangers, the new light, the different smell of this morning versus every other morning with those wide, unafraid eyes. He looks so much like Nathan right now that Tio's chest aches. The island sits behind them as the morning fully arrives, green and quiet and completely unchanged. It does not know they are leaving. It does not mourn. It just breathes the way it has always breathed, patient and long and full. Tio looks at it for a long time. He looks at the tree line where he built the bark pouch in week 2. At the shelter they constructed and reinforced through the rain. At the stream room I found by following a bird. At the fire that burned for 7 months and is still burning now, lower, tended out, but still throwing a thread of smoke into the blue morning sky. He memorizes it, not because it was good, because it was real. Nathan appears beside him. Your family? Tio asks. My mother, Nathan says. His voice is rough. She's been, he stops, clears his throat. She's okay, she's been okay. Tio nods. She wants to know when I'm coming home, Nathan says. What did you tell her? Nathan looks at the island, then at the boat, then at Tio. I told her I'm bringing people with me, he says, and that I need to explain some things in person. Tio almost smiles. Almost, that's one way to put it. Said as long as I'm alive, she doesn't care about the rest, Nathan says. Tio is quiet. Think that might be the version of love I never knew how to trust, he says, more to himself than to Nathan. Nathan hears it anyway. He turns and looks at Tio with an expression that does not ask for clarification and does not push. He just receives the sentence and holds it and lets it sit between them in the way that only someone who has spent 7 months learning the specific rhythm of Tio Beaumont can do. Come on, Nathan says. They're ready to load the dinghy. They walk back to the others. 5 men with 5 children, walking toward the water, toward the boat, toward the rest of their lives, moving with the particular, unsteady confidence of people who have no idea what happens next, but who have already survived every version of not knowing and come through it changed and intact. But as Tio steps into the dinghy and settles Caius against his chest and the Coast Guard officer pushes them off from the sand, he turns and looks back at the island one final time. And he sees it there, just at the tree line where the shelter entrance faces the beach. A single piece of bark propped against a root. The writing on it is faded now, almost gone, but Tio knows what it says. He put it there in month 3, when the weight of the secret was at its heaviest, and he needed somewhere to put the things he could not say out loud. Names, dates, true things. He looks at it until it is too far away to see. Then he faces forward. Baltimore in October is cold in a way the island never was. Nathan stands on the front steps of his mother's house in Reservoir Hill. Brownstone, red door. Same 3 cracked steps he has been stepping over since he was 7 years old. and he cannot make himself go in. Not yet. He stands there with Caius strapped against his chest in the carrier the hospital provided and looks at the red door and breathes the cold air and tells himself he is ready. He is not ready. The door opens anyway. Delphine Calloway is 63 years old, 5'2", and has the particular kind of presence that fills a doorframe completely regardless of her dimensions. She stands there and looks at her son for 3 full seconds. Her eyes move from his face to the baby carrier to his face again. "Nathan James Calloway," she says. "Hi, Mama," Nathan says. She steps forward and puts both arms around him, baby and carrier and all, and holds on. She does not say anything for a long time. Neither does he. The cold October air moves around them, and the street makes its street sounds, and somewhere down the block a dog is barking, and Nathan stands on his mother's steps with his arms around her and his son between them and breathes until his chest stops feeling like a closed fist. Then Delphine steps back and looks at Caius. Caius looks at her. Her face does something Nathan has not seen it do in decades. It opens completely, without protection, without guard, like a door that has been locked a long time, swinging wide in the light. "Lord," she says softly, "he looks just like you." "I know," Nathan says. She looks up at him. "Come inside," she says. "And then you're going to tell me everything, from the beginning." He tells her everything. He tells her on the couch in her living room with Caius asleep in the playpen she had ready. Of course she had it ready. She is Delphine. She has been ready for this child since she heard the words "plane went down" and said to herself that her son was alive and would come home with something she could not yet name. He tells her about the crash and the beach and the shelter and the 7 months. He tells her about Tio, about Kaz and Ramai and Damien Zion. He tells her about the biology, carefully, clinically, because his mother is a woman who respects information and does not need softening. He tells her about Caius arriving, about delivering all 5 children with his own hands. Delphine listens to all of it. She does not interrupt once. When he is done, she sits for a moment with her hands folded in her lap. She looks at Caius in the playpen. She looks at her son. "Where are they now?" she asks. "The other 4, Nathan exhales. "Ramai's family is in Chicago. They came and got him. Damie is in Houston. Zion went back to his sister in Memphis. Kaz is here in Baltimore. His grandmother is here. Tio," she says. Nathan looks at his hands. "Tio is in Atlanta," he says, "at his grandmother's house." He pauses. He has been very clear about needing to return to his own home and his own space before anything else is decided. Delphine nods slowly. "And what have you decided?" "That I'm going to be patient," Nathan says. "That I'm not going to push anything before he's ready. That I'm going to show him I mean what I said on the island, that I'm not going anywhere, by actually not going anywhere, for as long as it takes." His mother looks at him for a long time. "You love him," she says. Nathan does not hesitate. "I don't know if I have the right to that word yet," he says. "I know him in a specific context. I know who he is under pressure and under survival and under the kind of conditions that strip everything down to what's actually real. And what I found there," he stops. "I want the chance to know the rest." Delphine nods. She gets up. She goes to the kitchen. She comes back with 2 cups of coffee. She places one in front of her son, sits down and says, "Then the first thing you're going to do is call him." Nathan looks at her. "To push," she says. "Just to say you arrived, just so he knows you're thinking about them." She picks up her coffee. "That is how you do this, Nathan. Not with grand plans, with small, consistent actions. Every day, you let people feel that you're still there." Nathan picks up his coffee. He thinks about Tio's hands pressed against each other in the shelter that morning. About Caius in his arms for the first time. About the bark note at the tree line that he never asked about and Tio never explained, and he suspects contained every true thing that could not be said out loud on an island where all 6 of them were listening. He puts down the coffee. He picks up his phone. He calls Tio. It rings 3 times. Then Tio's voice, careful, controlled, and underneath all of that, present. "Nathan, I made it," Nathan says. "Just wanted you to know we made it." A pause. "Caius okay?" Tio asks. "He's asleep in my mother's playpen," Nathan says, looking extremely comfortable with the situation. Another pause, shorter this time, and then quiet, almost too quiet to catch a sound that might be a breath of laughter. Just barely, just the edge of one. "Good," Tio says. "How's Atlanta?" Nathan asks. "Cold," Tio says. "Baltimore too. A beat." "Nathan," Tio says. "Yeah, me time," he says, not asking, statting, clear and direct the way Tio does everything. "You have it," Nathan says, just as clearly. Tio is quiet for a moment. "Okay," he says. They hang up. Nathan sits for a moment with the phone in his hand. Behind him, Delphine does not say a word. She drinks her coffee and watches the street through the window and gives him the particular gift of silence when silence is what a thing needs. Caius stirs in the playpen. Makes a sound. Nathan goes to him immediately. He reaches in. He lifts his son. He holds him the way he has learned to hold him, one hand at the base of his skull, forearm supporting his whole weight, angling him slightly against his chest where the heartbeat is most audible. Caius was born on an island. He was surrounded by heartbeats his entire existence before he arrived. He settles fastest against a chest he can feel. He settles now. Nathan stands in his mother's living room, in the house he grew up in the city he has always known, holding a child he did not know existed 4 weeks ago. And he feels, for the first time in his adult life, with full clarity, without confusion, that he is exactly where he is supposed to be, not because the circumstances are resolved. Because he is not running from them. 2 days later, a delivery arrives at a post office box in Atlanta, Tennessee, Chicago, Houston, and Memphis simultaneously. 5 packages, one for each of them. Small boxes wrapped plain inside each, something Nathan made on the island. Braided palm cord, shaped over months, worked in the evenings when his hands needed something to do that was not building or fixing or managing, just making. 5 bracelets, each slightly different. Each made during a specific month, from a specific material, with a specific intention that he never named out loud to any of them. Each one arrives with a note. The note says you kept them alive. I'm not going anywhere. In Atlanta, Tio opens the box at his grandmother's kitchen table. He takes out the bracelet. He turns it over in his hands. It is made of the darker cord from the shelter weaving, the same material Tio showed Nathan how to work in week 1. He recognizes the pattern. He taught Nathan this pattern on a rainy afternoon in month 2. Nathan remembered. Tio holds the bracelet for a long time. His grandmother Alma sits across the table from him. She does not ask. She watches her grandson sit with something in his hands that he is not yet ready to describe, and she gives him the time because she is the kind of woman who understands that some things need to be held before they can be explained. Caius is in the other room, sleeping. Tio looks at the bracelet. He puts it on. He does not make a decision about anything. He simply sits with it on his wrist and lets it mean what it means, and does not rush the meaning into something he can file away and manage. Outside, Atlanta is cold and grey and entirely normal. Cars and traffic lights and people walking dogs and the ordinary machinery of the world that kept turning for 7 months while they were on the island, and will keep turning regardless of what any of them decide. Tio looks at his wrist. He picks up his phone. He does not call Nathan, but he types a single message and sends it before his brain can intervene. It says, I put it on. 3 seconds later, Nathan types back, good, that is all, that is enough. 5 months after the island, on a Saturday in March, Nathan Calloway drives from Baltimore to Atlanta in 7 hours without stopping except once for gas and once for coffee, and he does not tell Tio he is coming until he is 40 minutes away. The message he sends says, I need to show you something. I'm close. Tio's response takes 60 seconds. Close like how close? Nathan types 40 minutes. The response to that takes 2 minutes, which Nathan suspects means Tio is standing in the middle of a room deciding something. Then come to the house. My grandmother is at church. Nathan pulls up to a brick row house on a quiet street in West End Atlanta at 11 in the morning. The yard is small and neat. The front window has light in it. He gets out of the car. He gets Caius out of the car seat. Caius, who is now 5 months old and has very strong opinions about car seats, and has spent the last 300 miles making these opinions known, and he carries his son up the front walk. The door opens before he knocks. Tio stands in the doorway. He looks the same as the island. He looks completely different from the island. Same dark eyes, same absolute stillness in his face that functions as the frame for everything happening underneath it. But he is wearing his own clothes, a grey sweater, jeans, his own shoes in his own house in his own life, and the specific context of him is new in a way that Nathan was not prepared for. Tio looks at Nathan, then he looks at Caius. Caius looks at Tio. His whole face changes. He does the thing he does that Nathan has been watching him do every morning for 5 months when Tio's face appears on the video call, the specific brightening, the reaching of his arms, the full body recognition of his father. He cannot talk yet. He does not have words. But he has this which is older than words and more reliable. Tio's face does not stay still. It opens just for a moment, just 1 second before he controls it, and everything is there. The 7 months. The names in the dirt. The weight of every night he held Caius through the dark alone on that island. The relief of this moment, which he has not allowed himself to want too specifically, because wanting things specifically has always felt dangerous to Tio. He reaches out and takes his son. He holds Caius against his chest. He says nothing. He just holds him and sways once and closes his eyes. And Nathan stands on the front walk and watches, and does not speak because nothing he could say would be anywhere near as true as what he is watching. Then Tio steps back from the door. Come in, he says. The house smells like Alma's cooking and wood polish and something warm and old, that is simply the smell of a home that has been lived in by people who loved each other. Nathan follows Tio through a narrow hallway into a small bright kitchen. Tio puts Caius in a seat on the table, a baby seat already there, already set up, which means Tio has been thinking about this visit, which means he expected it, which means the 60 seconds between the text and the response were not about deciding whether to let Nathan come, but about deciding how to be ready. Tio puts water on. He does it the same way he did everything on the island, quietly, efficiently, no wasted movement. Nathan sits at the kitchen table across from his son and watches Tio move through the space and thinks about patience. 5 months of it, 5 months of video calls daily without fail, because Nathan is not the kind of man who says something and then fails to do it. Calls for Caius first, always, holding his son up to the screen, narrating his day, asking after the others. Then longer conversations after Caius was asleep. Slow, careful conversations about everything and nothing. about Baltimore and Atlanta and what they each were figuring out about being home after the island, about Caius's first smile, which happened on a Tuesday and which Nathan texted all 5 fathers simultaneously because it felt like it belonged to everyone. About Ramai's daughter's first laugh, which Ramai sent as a voice note at 2 in the morning and which made all of them cry independently and in different cities. About ordinary things, the building of something ordinary, the deliberate, unspectacular act of being present consistently, which is the hardest thing in the world for people who learned early that presence is never guaranteed. Tio puts 2 cups of tea on the table. He sits down. He looks at Nathan directly. You drove 7 hours, he says. I did, Nathan says. You said you had something to show me. Nathan reaches into his jacket pocket. He takes out an envelope. He sets it on the table between them and pushes it forward. Tio looks at it. He looks at Nathan. Open it, Nathan says. Tio opens it. Inside are 2 documents. The first is a lease agreement, an apartment in West End Atlanta, 3 blocks from this house, signed by Nathan Calloway starting April 1st. Tio goes still. He reads it again. Moving to Atlanta, he says. Moving to Atlanta, Nathan says. Tio looks up. My firm has a research affiliate here, Nathan says. I made a call. I transferred. It took about 3 weeks of paperwork and 1 conversation with my mother who said, and I am quoting directly, that it was about time. He pauses. I am not moving in on your life, Tio. I am moving to your city. Because you are here and Caius should be near both his parents, and because I told you on the island that I was not going anywhere and I intended that literally. Tio does not speak for a long time. He looks at the lease. He looks at Caius, who has fallen asleep in the table seat with the effortless confidence of someone who arrived in this kitchen and decided it was home. He looks at the second document, which he has not yet picked up. What's the other one? He asks. Read it, Nathan says. Tio picks it up. It is a letter. Handwritten, not typed, which is unusual enough that Tio registers it immediately. The handwriting is careful, precise, the handwriting of a man who does not write by hand often and is trying very hard to do it correctly. It reads, Tio, I am not here to make a case. I am not here to rush anything or to ask for something you are not ready to give. I am here because 7 months on that island showed me who I want to choose to be, and who I want to choose to be is the person who shows up. Not with speeches, not with grand plans, just here in the city, 3 blocks away. Present, for Caius and for you and for whatever time you need before anything else makes sense. I learned your weave pattern in week 2. I made 5 bracelets because my hands needed something true to do. I held your son at 4 in the morning on the worst night of the crossing because he was crying and you were asleep for the first time in 3 days and I did not want to wake you. I have been learning you since the first morning on the beach and I am not finished. Take your time, I'm not going anywhere. Nathan, Tio reads it twice. He sets it down flat on the table. He puts both hands flat beside it and looks at them. Those hands that pressed against each other in the shelter. That pressed against his sternum through 7 months of keeping everything together. That are still now completely, deeply still in the warm kitchen of his grandmother's house on a Saturday morning in March. He looks up at Nathan. Nathan looks back, no performance. No strategy, just present, just here. 3 blocks, Tio says. 3 blocks, Nathan confirms. Tio is quiet for 1 more moment. Then he does something Nathan has not seen him do once. Not in the crash, not in the rain, not in 7 months of survival and secrecy and labor and birth and rescue, and all the enormous and impossible things they walked through together. He smiles, not a controlled, managed almost smile, a real one. Full and sudden and completely unguarded, the kind that reaches his eyes and changes his whole face and makes him look, for 1 brilliant moment, like every wall he ever built never existed. Nathan has to look away. He looks at Caius instead, sleeping in the table seat with his fists curled and his chest rising and falling in the slow, certain rhythm of a child who knows he is safe. "'Kay," Tio says. Nathan says, 3 blocks, Tio says again. "We start there." Nathan nods. He picks up his tea. Tio picks up his. They sit in the kitchen of a brick house in West End Atlanta, and they drink their tea and Caius sleeps between them. And outside the city moves through an ordinary Saturday morning that is extraordinary in every way that does not show from the outside. No music. No ceremony, no grand conclusion. Just this, 2 people choosing, with full knowledge of what it costs and what it gives, to keep showing up for each other. Later, when Alma Beaumont comes home from church at noon, she finds her grandson in the kitchen with a man she has only seen on a screen and a baby she has held twice now over video and will hold in person for the first time today. She stops in the kitchen doorway. She looks at the 3 of them. She looks at the 2 teacups and the envelope on the table and the bracelet on Tio's wrist and the way her grandson is sitting, not closed, not braced, not managed, just open. She puts her bag down. She looks at Nathan. "You hungry?" she says. Nathan looks at Tio. Tio nods once. "Yes, ma'am," Nathan says. Alma nods, washes her hands, opens the refrigerator. Tio looks at Nathan across the table. Nathan reaches into his jacket pocket. He takes out a second bracelet, one he has been carrying for 3 months, waiting for the right moment, different from the one he sent. Darker cord, tighter weave, made during the last month on the island during the nights he sat with the signal fire. He has had it in his pocket every single day since Baltimore. He sets it on the table between them. He does not explain it. He does not need to. Tio looks at it. He picks it up. He holds it in both hands, the way he held the first one at this same table 5 months ago, and looks at it for a long time. And then, very slowly, he turns it over. And he sees, worked into the pattern in a darker strand, barely visible unless you know to look, 5 tiny knots. One for each child. One for Amos and Lyric and Solomon and June and Caius. 5 small anchors woven into something he will carry on his wrist. Tio stares at it. Something moves through him, through his chest, through his hands, through the specific place behind his sternum where he has been keeping things for a very long time, and it does not hurt. For the first time in a very long time, it does not hurt. He puts the bracelet on next to the first one. He looks up. The island is behind them. All 700 miles of ocean. All 7 months. All the names in the dirt, and the bark pouch, and the signal fire, and the morning with the names, and the question nobody answered, and the walk toward the water, and everything that came after. It is all behind them, permanent and real and carried, not as weight, not anymore, but as the foundation of something that is still being built. They are in Atlanta now. It is March. The sun is coming through the kitchen window, warm for the season, landing on the table between them. Alma Calloway is cooking. Caius is waking up, blinking slowly, taking in the kitchen ceiling with the same unhurried interest he brings to everything new. And Tio Beaumont sits across from Nathan Calloway with 2 braided bracelets on his wrist and his son between them and the whole unwritten rest of his life in front of him, and he does not know what happens next. But for the first time since a plane fell out of the sky and changed everything, he is not afraid of not knowing. He reaches out, he picks up his tea, and Nathan, watching him, does the same.